It's Thursday. For anyone that is triggered by sickness, this might not be the conversation for you. Because I don't know what I have. I have problems, generally. But this is an important conversation and something I've talked about a lot, and it's very relevant. Today, jury choosing starts in the case of Jennifer Crumbley. And for those of you who don't know who Jennifer Crumbley is, her son, who I will call E, because I really think it's important not to give school shooters attention. So I'll call him EC. EC was her child, and on November 30th of 2021, which is not quite 4 years ago, he murdered Juliana, who was 14, Madison Baldwin, who was 17, Tate Meyer, who was 16, and Justin Schilling, who was 17. And with a weapon that his parents had bought for him. And so the question is, should they have known, should they have been aware that he was part of this? And what's interesting is parents have never been charged in this kind of thing before. You had Columbine, whose mother, Sue Klebold, wrote actually a book, what's called A Mother's Reckoning, and it's really good. And she talks about how she missed signs. But I think most people would say that she didn't intentionally miss signs. She missed signs in a very relatable, real mother way. In her book, she really talks about things you should have known. Maybe I'll see if she'll come on sometime. It's really a good book. So EC was 15, goes to school, murders 4 classmates, and you think, well, why is it the parents' fault? How did they know that that was going to happen? Well, funny enough, one of the warning signs for this is he had a jar with the head of a baby bird in it in his bedroom. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I have 3 teenagers, 2 teenage sons, and I know what's in their bedroom. We've got like a snake skin. You know, I have one child that loves, some sort of a dragonfly that he found. A baby bird head. And if this is something you want to talk about after this video, we are going to do a subscriber video. I'm going to put the link up, and that's a place where you can make comments, and we'll have kind of a discussion. This is just me kind of sharing what I think is really relevant to today, particularly if you don't know much about it, or if you're wondering, like, what is happening? And I probably err on the side of, I think they certainly knew something. Do I think it is going to meet the standard of what the law requires? I'm not an attorney. I just play one on TV. Now, Justin Schilling, who was 17 and was murdered that day, his father said this: all they had to do was tell the school that they had recently purchased a gun for their son, asked him where the gun was, opened his backpack, or just take him home. The defendants were in a better position than anyone else in the world to prevent this tragedy, but they failed to do so. And this is true. And this is data related. So school shooters, 75% of the time, they access a weapon from home. And at the time, this happened in Michigan, there was no law that said you had to have your firearm locked up, which is about only half the states have that law. So since that time, it is now a felony to have a gun and not have it locked up, and you can serve up to 15 years. So let's go back to the beginning. Jennifer and James Crumbley were EC's parents. They were called to school on November 30th, 2021. They were called to school because there were some drawings that were a concern for the school. And I'm going to show you those drawings because I think it's important. Let's see here. This is kind of tricky for me. I'm not an expert here. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Do it like this. So a teacher found this piece of paper on his desk. Ethan Crumbly, November 30th, 2021, 8:59 a.m. Blood everywhere. There's a gun. The thoughts won't stop. Help me. Someone bleeding. My life is useless. The world is dead. So the teacher was concerned enough that they sent a picture to the parents and said, you need to come here for a meeting. So the parents come to the meeting. Now, at this point, Ethan, I guess, has been made aware that somebody's concerned. The teacher had taken a screenshot of this drawing. So when the parents get there, this is what the piece of paper shows. Now, clearly, he has scratched out the bloody person. Video game, the thoughts won't stop. Took out help me, took out the gun, took out my life is useless, and put harmless act with a laugh face. I love my life so much. We're all friends here. The world is dead, is gone. I would argue that even the simply scratching it out would be a real concern, because then he knows that people are on to him, right? Oh, golly Moses. So they go to school. Well, let's just get, hold on, I'm a little bit convoluted. So these parents have been in jail since December 2021. And the reason you might think, well, why are they in jail? They've been in jail. I mean, that's a long time, right? They, after their son was arrested, they were the subject of a manhunt by local and federal authorities because they didn't show up for an arraignment on charges. I mean, they were flat taken off. The attorney said, well, they're not a flight risk. And they were like, yes, they were. They were found like hiding in a parking lot in Detroit. They had 4 phones, tried to destroy one of them when police found them, and they had 2 burner phones. So, are the parents responsible? That's the question that is going to be asked. That morning that they saw that writing, they met with the school counselors regarding the threats. He had also asked them for help, and we're going to get into that too. Assumably because he knew he was dangerous and told his mother that he was guided by voices. The parents bought him a gun in spite of what many of us would say were pretty serious signs of mental illness. And that day that they had the meeting at school, they cut it short. Now, meanwhile, the mother's having an affair, which is not against the law, but it sort of tells you that her priorities were not her son. She was trying to get out of there early so she could go look after a horse. It's a true story. So currently, EC was charged as an adult, and he pled guilty to 24 federal counts and is serving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. At 14, he was charged as an adult. The dad, James Crumbly, whose trial hasn't happened yet, he's 47. I'm 48. It's just hard for me. And I have, and you know, I think this is important to talk about. I have a son. I have 2 teenage sons. And we got our oldest son a shotgun for Christmas. He likes to duck hunt. And it's locked up downstairs in a gun safe. And he was excited. And if something, let's say he did something terrible, and you said to me, that's your fault, you bought the gun, I would say to you, there are no signs at all that our son is at all of risk to himself or other people. I think if you had said to them, and maybe this is the hardest part for me, is how much responsibility is on the school and how much responsibility is on the parents. The school could have looked in his backpack. They did not. So if you didn't know that, you don't have to have a search warrant to check a child's backpack at school. So if the school ever calls you and said, we've looked in your child's backpack, don't go having a big hissy fit because it's legal. The school could have said, I guess he could have answered no, but the backpack is something they could have done. Yeah, I agree, Leanne. The school let the parents decide. We'd like you to take him home. No, we're not gonna. But the school didn't buy the gun either. You want to hear, you need to talk louder. Well, I have a cold, bronchitis, sinus infection, something. So James Crumbly, 47, buys the gun 4 days before the shooting. And Ethan puts up an Instagram post, which I saw before it was taken down. And he has a picture of the gun in the picture, and he calls it my new beauty. It's a Christmas present, early Christmas present. And again, I understand that somebody might buy a weapon for a Christmas present. Though after reading this, maybe not. Jennifer Crumbly took her son to the shooting range with this new gun and described the outing on Instagram. I saw this too. A mom and son day. Now, I call a mom and son day because I have teenage sons, like going out to eat for a steak or going out to lunch. Mainly eating is what my children like to do. After the meeting with Ethan, the counselor left a message. So the counselor meets with Ethan over this drawing. The counselor and like maybe the vice principal, Fine and Hopkins, said they leave a message on Jen's phone, Jennifer's phone, his mother. We just had a really nice conversation with Ethan and assured him that we know, quote, guns are a hobby for a lot of people in shooting ranges, and that's perfectly normal, but that certain hobbies were better pursued at home. And he was great. He was like, I get it. Fine said, her voice was upbeat. If you have any questions, you can give me a call. Otherwise, I hope you have a great holiday. Oh, so this actually, sorry, I misspoke. This meeting was when a teacher saw him looking up bullets. So this is a few days before. A teacher sees him looking up bullets on his computer. He's going to look up bullets to buy. And the mother, she gets this message and she texts him and says this, seriously? Looking up bullets in school? So she knows, right? I mean, she knows. Shoot. Oh, yeah, there we go. He said, what? Oh, yeah, I already went to the office for that. Completely harmless. Teachers just have no privacy. They said I'm all good. This is nothing I should get in trouble about. The mother, who thinks she's like kind of funny, and I mean, I'm funny. You're not. They left me a voicemail. And then, did you at least show them a pic of your new gun? No, I didn't show them the pic, my God. Ethan reiterates that it was harmless. I guess the teachers can't get their eyes off my screen, SMH. Jennifer, his mother, wrote back, LOL. Now, if you want to talk about a parent pretending to be a friend and not a parent, LOL, I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad. You have to learn how not to get caught. I mean, what? This is right up there with talking about a bomb at the airport. I told my children, I remember when they were all about probably 9 or 10, maybe Amos's age, and they would be like, you can't take guns at the airport. And I would say to them, you do not use those words at the airport. Gun, bomb, knife, nothing. This is not a joke. If you use those words at the airport, they could very well pull you into a room and we're not getting on the plane. This is the same kind of thing. If you were looking up bullets at school, someone is going to assume you were a school shooter. This is not a joke. I'm not mad at you. Have to learn not to get caught. And told Ethan he could listen to the voicemail when he got home. Now, in October, so the Crumbleys there are going to be all these eyewitnesses in the trial. And the lawyers are arguing that the eyewitnesses' testimony is it will unfairly inflame the jurors because of the horror that they witnessed. And here's what Mariel Lehman said. I love these terrible attorneys. The dad's attorney. The gruesome and horrifying testimony about what occurred in the school is not relevant and would certainly inflame the jury and confuse them as to what the relevant issues are. The issue for the defense lawyers is this. The parents' cases involve what happened before the November 30th shooting, not during, with the focus being on how the Crumbleys raised their son, whether they had a duty to protect others from him, and whether they could have prevented the deadly shooting that killed 4 students and injured 7 others, including a teacher. They've been charged with involuntary manslaughter for buying their son the gun that he used in the massacre and never disclosing to the school that he had access to a gun. So here are the witnesses that they don't want to talk. Principal Christy Gibson Marshall, who gave mouth-to-mouth to a dying teenage boy who had been shot in the back of the head, telling him she loved him and to hang on, though he didn't make it. Gregory Keegan, a student who was stuck in a bathroom with the shooter, texting his family as he heard the gunman shoot his final victim, who was ordered to his knees before being shot execution style. Teacher Molly Darnell, who locked eyes with the gunman before he opened fire on her, shooting her in the arm just 6 inches from her heart. Both parents, yes, Katie, but the mother's trial starts first. Prosecutors are arguing that the Crumbleys, more than anybody else, could have prevented this shooting if they had disclosed to school officials that day when they were summoned to school. So they weren't summoned to school when he was looking up the bullets. They were summoned to school over that drawing I show you. The school calls him and says, your son just made this violent drawing on a math worksheet, had a gun, a bleeding body. The thoughts won't stop. Help me. The world is dead. The Crumbleys go to school for the meeting, and they never say, well, he does have a gun that we bought him. Instead, they said, well, we'll get him some help. And they said, well, we'd like you to take him home. And they said, well, can he just go back to class because we got to get to work? The mother went to the barn. 2 hours later, he emerged from a bathroom and opened fire. That day of the bullets, I think if you go back a few days, the day that he was looking up the bullets and the mother said, I'll let you listen to the message. It does appear they got upset with him. But in his journal, he wrote that day, the shooting is tomorrow. I have access to the guns and ammo. He also addressed his parents. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry for never saying it back. Now, also in this journal, he had written how he wanted a 9mm handgun to, quote, maximize the number of kills, quote, and how he was, quote, enlisting his own father, quote, to get it for him. And again, he gets the gun. The dad buys it for him. It's a Sig Sauer, Sauer, and he calls it My New Beauty on Instagram. Over that weekend, he writes in his journal, quote, I will have to find where my dad hid my 9mm before I can shoot the school. In the early hours of Monday morning at 3 a.m., okay? This is the day of the shooting. Jen is awake. His mother, you're so hoarse. Yeah, I know, I'm sick. She's awake on the phone searching. Okay, you ready? quote, research clinical depression treatment options. It's in Michigan. So he gets in trouble for looking up bullets. It seems like the parents were concerned, but they didn't want him to think they were concerned. So it was like, it's kind of a joke. And maybe in their own minds, it was like, la, 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 la. We're just going to pretend we're not concerned. They hide the gun from him somewhere. It's not locked up. It's just hidden. Well, let's talk about something. I remember going in my parents' closet and finding a handgun and picking the thing up when I was little. I bet I couldn't have been 10 years old. I never told my parents that. That's how people get shot or shoot friends or whatever, it's an accident. So at 3 a.m., the day of the shooting, she's researching clinical depression treatment options. So she knows there's a problem. They've hidden the gun. They know there's a problem. At 9:30 that morning, scam down. I'm struggling. She texted her husband and said, call now, in all caps now, emergency. This is at 9:33. At 9:30, she texted again, emergency. So this is not, she doesn't think this is a game or a joke. She realizes this is serious. They have just found this sheet. I've been looking up mental health clinics that morning. The bullet thing was the week before. At 9:38, she texted 2 photos, those photos I showed you, of a math sheet that Ethan had been working on that morning. So it was his geometry teacher. She walked past his desk, and what she caused her so much alarm that she took a photo of it with her phone and took it to the dean of students. And if you didn't see that part, you can go back and look at it. So she says, I was struggling. I got all these notes and my computer hates me. Damn. No, this is not good. Okay. Again, on the drawing, he had drawn a pistol exactly like the one his dad had just bought him 4 days before. He's supposed to be reviewing congruent triangles. He drew this human figure filled with holes and a laughing, crying face. He wrote, the thoughts won't stop. Help me. Blood everywhere. The world is dead. By the time Hopkins came back to get him out of class, this is interesting, he had already fixed the drawing, scribbled out the gun, the bullet-riddled figure, the dark phrases. He wrote, I love my life so much. We're all friends. Harmless act. When her husband got the text, this is really important. He texted back, not, oh gosh, what's he done this time? Which would tell you he didn't really know. My God, WTF. And Jen says, I'm very concerned. She asked him to call her because she was headed to the school. This is when prosecutors are going to say they failed to get help for him. And he had not only had these warning signs, he had asked for help. He told his dad, I need help. And his dad gave him some pills. He wrote about this. This was in some text. And his dad said to him in a text, quote, suck it up. Opening statements right now. Okay, I'm going to hurry. Another thing he did was he told his mother months before the shooting that there was a demon inside their house and it was throwing objects. I mean, that's a concern. So they go to the school, and Hopkins at school says, I want him seen by a mental health professional today if possible. And that's when his mother said, no, today is not possible. We have to return to work. So she ended up going to the barn because this horse she had mud fever. So she had to go look at a property with some colleagues and then get back to the barn to help this horse. A horse. The other person joined the meeting halfway through. I think it was the dean who said there was no discipline issue, which is a concern because that's not true. Had the school decided that Ethan had broken any rules, the meeting might have taken a different course, including a suspension from school or a search of his backpack. Instead, the dean went to the geometry classroom, got Ethan's backpack, and Ethan said, yeah, I'm good to continue my day. I'm fine to stay here. Well, that's good. Hopkins said that day, well, hold on. The hell? Hold on. Why I'm struggling so much. Welcome to my life. It's a struggle. Said and if anything, he was worried the most about Ethan's own safety and didn't want him to be alone. Now, if that's the craziest thing I've ever heard, is it not? To me, but what do I know? Hold on. Shoot. Oh, let's see here. So I've got my computer open and I cannot get it to scroll down because I'm nuts. I don't think there's that much left anyway. So the dad, they leave. The dad, 10 minutes later, hears about the shooting and he calls 911 and he said, so the first thing he does when he finds out about the shooting, he goes home to look for the gun. All the other parents were worried about their children. They didn't go home and look for another gun. He calls 911 and says, I have a missing gun at my house. He tried to explain about the counselor and the math sheet and how he was driving and had heard about this active shooter situation at the school. And he said, I raced home just to find out. And I think my son took the gun. I don't know if it's him. I don't know what's going on. I'm really freaking out. The Crumbleys said they feared suicide. McDonald says they must have been imagining homicide. Hundreds of parents have rushed to the supermarket to pick up their kids. And again, the Crumbleys are the only ones that go home to look for the gun. The only ones. So just sit with that for a little while. The only ones. So I'm going to hop over to my subscriber page so we can talk, and I'm going to turn on the opening statements. And, I think there's this thing of we don't want to blame people and we don't want this, but we've got a problem. We have a problem with school shootings. And maybe these parents, if this had happened to another parent, maybe they would have said, you know what? We have to have the gun locked up. If Ethan hadn't had access to that gun, the shooting wouldn't have happened. Period. He was 15. It wasn't going to happen. And you might say, well, he could have gotten it somehow. Well, it wouldn't have happened that day. And you're going to tell those 4 parents that it just wasn't a big enough deal? Court TV is how you watch it. So anyway, subscribers, see you in a minute. Court TV.